Hi everyone, you're welcome to the Microsoft platform tutorial for this week, and I'll be doing a run through. Of course, my name is Fatih Usiaka. Uh, I'll be doing a run through on the Microsoft Power Apps. So, one of the my colleague actually did something similar. He did what's it called? He did some tutorials on this last week, but I was informed that there was a bit of kind of a network issue and some other stuff like that. So I'll just be doing like a very quick run through on this. Yeah. So perhaps we have building Power Apps. So when we're talking about Power Apps, we're talking about Canvas apps and we're talking about model-driven apps. So we have two major type of apps. So we have the Canvas apps, which is just to do it with. Okay, of course I'll be talking about that version. So the introduction to that. So what we're going to be discussing has to do with learning what Power Apps is and how you can create business value and how and what value it creates for the business actually. So another thing is there was a scenario of the Ethro was it called application that was built by a security guy. So that was actually being used in the Ethro report. So I think that's what the second line is about. So the third thing you're going to be seeing Power Apps in action and some of the usage, some of the functionalities, some of the things you can do with it. So the next one has to do with so Power Apps itself is just like a low code platform where we have a lot of ideas going into place. Like we have a lot of what's it called? So we have like kind of canvases where you can just put things together and actualize it to form like an application that is usable. Okay, sorry, one second. I'm trying to kind of get my internet fixed. Okay, so sorry about that. So yeah, Power Apps enables us to kind of use like that the it enables us to leverage on the platform to write low codes and get a functional application that does something meaningful. So then we actually work with data. When working with data, of course, Power Apps does not have like its own database. It doesn't have its own like temporary it doesn't has its own permanent storage, so to say. So when you're working with Power Apps, then you're leveraging on data storage like SharePoint, you're leveraging on data storage like SQL or Dataverse basically. So like I said, we have two main types of Canvas apps. So uh, sorry, two main type of apps basically, Canvas and model driven. So Portal is something like that was really introduced, which has to do with like having some what's it called, externally facing website kind of. So there is the opportunity to add like AI features into your application, which with the help of the what's it called, the AI builder basically. So yeah, Canvas apps. When we're talking about Canvas apps, then we're talking about you building like an application from blank, you analyzing the UI and trying to actualize it on the using the using the Power Apps controls, the Power Apps controls basically. So I'll be sharing that very soon. So now when you're creating an application, you're either creating to fit like a mobile device or you're creating to fit like a tablet. So once the application is going to be, you kind of you kind of create that based on where the application will be accessed from. So if it's going to be accessed on a PC or a tablet, so you can use a tablet mode, and if it's probably going to be used mostly by the what's it called, the mobile users, then you can focus more on the what's it called, the mobile screen kind of. So what's another thing Canvas apps gives you gives you the experience is the ability to interact with your data. You can easily create, you can do like a CRUD easily. So maybe you're creating data around SharePoint or SQL or the common data service. So you can easily do that with Power Apps. So it makes the CRUD operation like create, read, update, and delete functionality very handful, and it's gives like a very flexible experience. For the what's it called, for the builder. So if you look at the right hand side, we have a lot of controls. So we have like a drop down, we have an input field, we have like a text area field. So you can see we image, you can easily pull image into it. You can have different buttons that does different thing. So that's like an example of what an application actually looks like. But we're going to be talking about that in details very soon. So we have model driven app. So these are built uh, from the data from the Microsoft Dataverse mostly. So let's say you're trying to have like a you know um, fully functional app that acts upon like interaction with users. So model driven apps, there's no, like, you don't really have to be, what's it called, specific on the, what's it called, the app size, maybe like the responsiveness, or the kind of screen size or resolution you're choosing. So it works on mobile, it works on tablet, it works on PC normally, so without extra effort basically. So you define the forms, the views, the business rules, like whatever you want to see. So it's just like you trying to kind of so from the right hand side, I think that is very clear. So you can actually see it is like you're trying to have some visualizations of data that lives on the, what's it called, Dataverse. So you can easily access and use the information basically. And you can also do some customizations around what someone will see, like what's this person that belongs to this particular group will see. So that has to do with like the business rule, the security groups. So you can always have that and in model driven application as well. So that's actually leverages more on the data from the common data service. So portals bring the power of solution as well to build like a website, like a UI, like a very good website. So which is something that like uh pretty, it makes work actually easier. So with by combining controls, by combining different UIs, then you can actually make that portal for your company, for your organization, that enables people to kind of use the what's it called, probably you want to get some details of users, something like that. So you can use like drag and drop experience. You have a lot of controls that you can just drag from the, what's it called, from the what's it called, you can drag some of the controls from the repository down to like to your portal basically. So yeah, the next thing I just have to talk about, because I'm just like I said, I'm just kind of doing like a walkthrough on this perhaps. So is the, what's it called, the security and administration. So you can manage security for your perhaps on the, what's it called, platform admin center. So you can also have like some kind of PowerShell commands to recover application that was mistakenly deleted, to basically do some task. So we will be sharing the link to some of this, like PowerShell commands. I can remember we have it on the perhaps what's it called, documentation. So also, it drives business value. Perhaps drives business value. So based on whatever thing you're creating it for. So it allows even the most entry level users to reduce paperwork. So say for example, you have a lot of you're managing like a logistic company. You don't necessarily have to have that paperwork for each item. No, you could just have like an application that is being used in house by the, what's it called, the staffs, probably by different various departments. So let's say something has to go through approval, you can just like create an application that does that for you, rather than having to like take papers from like stocking paper and taking it from one place to the other. So perhaps you can easily create like a form, or a visual, anything that actually solves that problem in real time. So they have, yeah, so this is like a public facing scenario for power apps. So Heathrow Airport in London actually has, as at when this documentation was was compiled. So they have 76,000 workers and 200,000 travelers in a single day. So now look at it. How do you want to undo, like, if you're keeping paper records for 200 travelers a day? It's not going to be easy. So what they did was, they empower their frontline workers to build application and solve problems. Another thing is, what they did is, one of their former security worker turned like an app maker. So I think his name is Samit Saini, right? So he created an app that held security information translated into dozens of different languages. So the app, what he did was, okay, just some of the information that is required for them. So he had an application, he created a power apps that translated some of those information into like different languages. So people do not really have to worry about understanding, English. So because they have Spanish traveler, a lot of them. So a demo, we are going to be doing the demo very soon. So I think, yeah, my colleague actually did demo, so I'm probably going to be skipping that. Yeah, so how to build canvas apps. Yeah, most times this is not like the best way to kind of teach it or explain it. Rather, you have that like the UI. But of course, we definitely be deep diving into building cost canvas application like more than what's it called, building model driven applications. So, but of course, let's just like take ourselves straight for now. So you're going to like, while building an application, these are some of the key things that you need to kind of take notes. So you have to learn the basic elements of Power Apps. So you have to like do some hands-on by building things yourself. So most times I'm going to be, once I do some things, like once I'm demoing some of the like the tutorials, like once I'm trying to build some canvas apps. So I would implore the listeners or the watchers to actually take their time to build the same thing and see if they get the same output or outcome. So yeah, we can also leverage on the community to actually talk about the experience, or if you're having issues doing that. So you want to customize the element of your app application of your application as well, and you want to configure and manage app settings as well. So this has to do with now building a canvas apps. So you have different control. You have like your text input. Maybe you want to create a form where people can easily submit some information. So you get to use like the form controls. Like you have like the text input. You have like a drop down. You have like what's it called, people picker, or you call it what's it called, drop down. Yeah, so we have the drop down. So yeah, you're talking about the button. So let's say you want to submit something, so you have the table functionality. You have a lot of controls in Power Apps, so we just like have to take our time to kind of go through each. So although, to be realistic, we might not be able to touch each and every of these controls, but of course we try as much as possible to do most of it. And with like other online tutorials, I think that will be helpful to achieve that. So you also want to customize the elements of your application. So what that means is, you want to give the what's it called, each of these controls that I mentioned. Maybe you want to style it, you want to give it a specific color, you want to give some background to it, So basically, you can do the customization to fit your own, to suit your need. Also, you have the flexibility of configuring and manage application, so you can choose who can access the application, who you want to share the application with in your organization. So yeah, you have that control as well as a on the Power Apps. So the basics elements in Power Apps, you have that Power Apps interface where you drag and drop controls, or where you click and the controls are being created. And you have also app formats. It could be in mobile or tablets. You have galleries, which has to do with you pulling, different. So it's galleries just looks like you having like a table. So it's something that you use to display list of information. Like let's say you have list of records of employee, so you can have like an employee gallery, so whereby you can easily access like some of their data basically. So yeah, that's gallery. Forms is actually very self-explanatory. So you're trying to kind of provide data or information about something, so you want people to kind of fill in something, like that form where you have the name, email and the likes. So you have that, you have that inbuilt controls that is in charge of the forms basically. So you have that forms control as well that you can use to do that. So you have different input controls. You have a text input, button, drop downs, toggles, and more. You have some of the intelligent controls as well. So, for example, you're talking about putting like displaying an HTML content. So that's when you're talking about rich text. So that has to do with you. It's transpiling or interpreting the HTML code to look like a text. So that's when you have like the rich text control. So you have functions as well that does different things, and you have some of the commands. I mean, like some keywords that are being used, like when you're talking about filtering data sets, you're trying to do like conditionals. Okay, if this what's it called, if this condition is true, try to give this button a color of red or something like that, so you can easily achieve that as well. So you have a lot of functions that you can actually call to do different things. So we'll be going through it as well. So this is what the interface looks like. You go to powerapps.com, then you can see this on the left hand side, on the right hand side. So on the left hand side, when you see this, you can click on create. So once you click on create an app from blank, so it gives you the functionality to like create an application from blank. You can also create from templates. So there are some existing templates, so we might actually be dwelling on that as well. So this is the interface that shows, if you want to create application, like if you want to like create an application and start or have like a connector, like a data source to hit. So let's say you wanna base your app, you want like your data source to be SharePoint, you can easily select that SharePoint on it. You want it to be OneDrive, or you want it to be common data service, you can easily select that. And if you want something blank, you don't really want any, you don't know, or you're not sure of where your data will live, so you can easily select the blank one basically. So yeah, these are the list of templates that we have in Power Apps. So I think these are like the commonly used, these are like the commonly used templates. So for example, an application has like a service desk where they handle their services, like people log requests and they're able to pick it from there. So you have that. So although you might have to like do some customizations to fit into that, to make that application conform to your own use case, basically. So you have leave request form where people actually sign or provide information about their leave request. Basically, just have a lot of template out there. So this is what a typical what's it called application looks like. So you have that, you have like a form. So this is like a form. So you have this text fields, text input fields, like you have this, and you have like this a drop down where you can easily select some information from. You have a larger text box, so which we call text area in HTML, obviously. So, and I think at the end of the day, so the what's it called, the data actually goes into SharePoint. So you're going to be doing something, as you guys see. So you have different controls. So we can actually explore these when we get to the Power Apps. So different controls includes button, drop down, with speaker. So we have all these basically. Yeah, intelligence control, that has to track, it has to do with like intelligence control has to do with something that predicts the a certain value basically. So say you have like 100 like you have a list of data that has like 100 records, and maybe 40 of the records have to do with, maybe it has like uh the status as active. So you can easily use the what's it called, the intelligence control, to tell like the total number of active records. So these are something that has to do with analysis and prediction. Yeah. So connecting to a data source, which is most of, so when you're building a Canvas app, so you are doing all this. So you're connecting to a data source because you want, the purpose of creating an application most times is just to get data, to play with data. So what I mean by playing with data is either you're creating the data, or you are reading the data, or you're probably updating the data or deleting the data basically. So that is all the applications we use actually revolves around that. So say for example, I'm building an application, let's say even all these conventional application like Facebook, Google Drive. So you can actually, Google Drive, you want to upload your document, so you're creating a document there. So you want to read your documents, you want to kind of use your documents, then you actually read it from the folder where it is. So like those are actually the basic thing around building an application. It's called CRUD operation. So which is create, read, upload, and delete. Yeah, CRUD. People call it CRUD. So I call it CRUD. So you want to install the application on your device. So we're talking about the mobile Power Apps mobile this time around. Once you install the mobile application on your phone, then you can easily open that and open the what's it called, the application that was created on your own environment, or the environment you have access to on the platform. So you want to explore the application, you want to customize the screens, you want some resolutions, you want all these things. So you have different kind of controls in Power Apps, like I said, and you have like, you can share applications, you can specify like permission of okay, when you're sharing an application, let's say user A, you want to share your application with user A, you can even specify further if you want that person to be a co-owner of the application or just a regular user. So you have the full flexibility of doing that as well, so you can specify that. So some permissions are implicit, other must be explicitly granted basically. Yeah. Summary, I think we'll be sharing the link to the lab as well. So we'll be following the lab most likely. So how to build a model-driven application? How do you build a model-driven application? So you're going to be talking about that. Yeah, I think my colleague actually did justice to all this. So I think I wanted to start with the what's it called, the okay. Then let me just talk about it. But of course, I'm not gonna do the demo right now because we'll be saving the demo for later because I think my colleague did last week. So learning what model-driven apps are and how they differ from Canvas apps. We're going to be learning the building blocks of model-driven application as well, the same way we did about the Canvas app. So we're going to learn how to create and design model-driven apps. So we're going to learn how to change security and share model-driven apps as well. So model-driven app design is a component-focused approach. So it has to do with like you having like different components for different things. So it's actually you playing with different records. It has to do with you, giving representation of like data on what's it called, based on like the business process, like the business itself. So the approach to making model-driven application. So you model your business data, you define your business process, and build the app. So you already have an analysis of what you're trying to achieve. Maybe you want to see the list of employees that has, like number of what's it called? That has maybe like, okay, you want to see the list of employees that are males, basically. So you can easily do like a representation of that. So you can just define your business process as regards that. So it's just probably straightforward. And your building blocks of model-driven apps include the data, so which has to do with the tables and columns of your data and the relationship between those tables. So you have the user interface where you have like different visualize. You have like the user interface which has to do with the app, the sitemap, the forms, and the view. So those are it has to do with the UI. Then the logic behind what you are going to see has to do with workflows, which was deprecated, I think, on the dynamics end. So you have the business process flow as well. You have the actions, you have the business rules, and you have the flows. So I think the workflows and flows now. No, workflows now, I will translate it as something that has to do with your company's workflow basically. So and visualization has to do with what you're seeing, what you saw in the last slide, which is this. So you can see the chart, you can see the dashboard, embedded Power BI. So you can have the full fledged of embedding your Power BI chart here as well. So yeah, this is what it looks like. So this is like a dashboard. So where you have like active challenges. So and you have like different color denoting different property. So you have like the industry IoT, the IT/OT convergence, new business model with the purple color, like and others. Yeah, creating a model-driven application. These are like the steps to do that. Create a model-driven app, add components to your add, create a form, edit a form, open and add a view in the application designer, and like add custom column to your view in App Designer, then publish. Yeah, so that's it for that. So I think I'll just be going to the next one, which has to do with the Power Automate flow. So for Power Automate, I'm just gonna be getting started as well, and I'm going to be like doing the demo of this. So this is like the fourth module, and we're going to be talking, like I said in the initial what's it called, initial discussion or the initial session we had. So I made mention that like the platform constitutes of different application, like four components. So which perhaps I was taking last week. Now I'm taking Power Automate. So next we begin at Power BI, and then talking about the other one as well. So which is PVA basically. So now Power Automate, the overview of that. Yeah, let's be talking about the Power Automate overview. So now, you want to learn the business values and features of Power Automate in this section, and you want to see how Power Automate had values to your organization, or to the organization basically, and how people actually uses it and what it can do basically. So common scenarios and capability of Power Automate includes automating repetitive tasks. Say, for example, you want to take, how do I put this? Okay, I'm just trying to come up with a scenario. Okay, look at what we have. Let's say in your company, you want to take some data. You want to do like you do like daily check-ins or something like that. So like daily automated check-in. So you probably want to visits like a URL or on an endpoint, or okay, then let me like, go through that path. So I think, say for example, you have like what's it called? You have like data that you want. Okay, say for example you have like a SharePoint document library, or you have, let me say, a folder, and that folder must have like data for the previous day. So now you can easily do that. You can achieve that daily task using Power Automate, rather than having to, like do the uploads manually yourself every day. So you can easily achieve that using Power Automate. So what Power Automate will do is you can create a flow that is triggered every day, sorry, that is scheduled to run every day. Then you tell it where the data is, okay, and where you want it to move it to. So that's like just the summary of what you're going to be doing with Power Automate. So yeah, you can automate repetitive tasks, something that you have to do every day or you have to do every month, you have to do every year. So you can easily automate that using Power Automate. So you can guide a user through a process basically. So you're also guiding a user through a process, and that actually includes like the what's it called? Say for instance, you have okay. Don't let me come up with an instance. I think we are going to be having that, as we proceed. So you're guiding like a user through a process. So that's like a user workflow kind of. So you can use that to achieve that. You can use Power Automate to achieve that as well. So connecting to external data sources. So say you have like data source like SQL, or you have a database in your organization, probably like all these common database like MySQL, you have PostgreSQL database, and you want to actually do one of the four operations. Maybe you want to create data on that database. Of course, the database is out of the Microsoft platform, so you can easily connect to those external data sources and use the data from it, or create data in it, or like update the data in it or delete data from it basically. So you can also automate desktop based process as well. So to be specific, Windows. Yeah, you can automate desktop processes as well. So which has to do with you probably doing some things on your PC. Maybe you want to open an application, then copy something, put it somewhere. Basically, it could be like of different scenarios. So yeah, that's when the what's it called, the UI flow actually comes into play. UI flow is more is has to do with like you automating processes on your desktop. Yeah, yeah. Another thing when we're talking about applications like these or softwares or uh, basically components of Power Automate, we have to talk about the efficiency as well, and we have to talk about the performance. So we have for Power Apps, yeah, it says some, yeah. So for Power Automate, you have some templates that are already in existence for you. Say, for example, you want to send an email, or you want to send, you want to create a calendar invite for all the employees when an email enters. So let's say when the CEO sends an email to a shared mailbox, where like it's shared mailbox, of course, has to do with you, like a team having like a dedicated mailbox where everybody, when an email is sent to that shared mailbox, everybody that belongs to the shared mailbox gets alerted, and they can easily get the what's it called, the message. So say for example, the CEO basically sends an email to a shared mailbox. So automatically you want to create like an event for everyone, like you want to add everyone that belongs to that shared mailbox. You want to add everyone to that event as well. So you want to create like a calendar, a meeting for everyone. So the effect of the what's it called, in the effect at the effect of the email that the CEO sent. So you can easily achieve that with the Power Automate. So now, so we have like different templates for that. So I think as for that, I want to be sharing my screen to show us different templates that we have. Yeah. Okay, let me just go this route. Power Automate. So while that is coming up, I'm going to be showing us the list of templates we have in the meantime. So then we want to talk about automate. So yeah, the second point is you automate across your favorite apps and services. So Microsoft have like 600 plus connectors. So I'm going to be showing that as well. So we have so just to be like, you can just do like a Google search of Microsoft. You can do like Microsoft Power Platform connectors. So you can see the list of connectors that you have. So you have like 600 plus connectors that you can easily integrate to your Power Automates, and so you have. So before I go to the list of connectors, so when we're talking about the templates, so this is what a typical Power Automate actually looks like. This is like the environment of Power Automate. Now, talking about the fact that you can easily create a flow, so you can do that from this end, and specify the kind of flow you want to create. If it's an automated one, maybe it is triggered based on an event when an email enters. You can use this. So, say you don't want it to be triggered automatically. You want, maybe when you click on a button on Power Apps, you want to trigger this flow. So that has to do with like this instance cloud flow, or you want to manually just trigger the flow and it works. So scheduled, what's it called, cloud flow. This has to do with you having a task that runs every day or every week, or like at a specified interval basically, or every 2 days. So you can easily use the scheduled cloud flow to do that, to achieve that. So then we're talking about the templates. So you have different templates that has to do with maybe like approvals, remote work, shared with me, topics, data collection, email, calendar, mobile. So you can have all these. You have all these templates that you can easily just click on it. And so, for example, I don't think I have an established connection to Twitter. Basically, I just selected that. So, but while that is coming up, I think I'll just take us through the connectors. So we have like on the documentation page, we have like list of like we have like list of all these connectors. So of course, 10 to 8 appointment scheduling, 365 training, you have abortion policy, AccuWeather. Of course, I I necessarily do not know what all these services have to offer basically. So you have ACT, Acumatica. So like let me just touch on some of the most common ones. So you have the Adobe PDF service, so which a lot of people use in signing, automatically signing. Maybe you want to automatically sign like a what's it called, a contract. Of course, contract is not something you automatically sign. Or maybe you have like a document that you just want to generate the signature for automatically. You can easily integrate on this Adobe PDF service, and these are like the capabilities. Yeah. So once you come to this documentation URL, so you can easily see you can easily see the type of connector it is. So we have two classification. We have the standard and we have the premium. So standard in terms of you don't really need to pay like for extra fee to use the service, but premium you need like a specified subscription that works, that enables you to use the premium service basically. So in terms of like the what's it called, charges, so that's where standard and premium comes into place. So standard actually comes with like different Office 365 packages. You have that standard access, like you have that standard license. So but when you have to like use this connector now, you have to like purchase a Power Automate license to do that. So to achieve that basically. So these are like the list of, yeah. So one thing I just like want to share with us. So we have list of actions, right? So one thing we watch out for, let me just come back here. So when creating a flow, I think I'm moving too fast though, but I think I'm still gonna come back here. So when you're creating, let me just select any of these guys. I'm trying to create a flow now. So let me say like let me call this session 3 flow. So you have like list of these triggers. So you can see this has to do with Microsoft Forms service. So when a response is submitted on form, you want to automatically trigger a flow. When an item is created, you want to trigger a flow. When an item is created on a SharePoint list, to be specific, you want to automatically trigger a flow. When an item is created or modified on a SharePoint list as well. So this is not just creation. Even when you modify the application, the what's it called, the what's it called, when you modify the record, then automatically this is like the trigger that fires off the flow. So once you perform all these actions that is like mentioned, automatically the flow is triggered. So now flow consists of three things. We have the trigger, we have the actions. I think two main things basically. So what actually fires the flow is the trigger, and the subsequent things that happen once the flows are fired is what we call the actions basically. So I was just trying to kind of talk about this action, so that's why I had to kind of go there to explain. So actions, it has to do with list of things that the actual connector can do for you. So these action, so not all the connectors actually have their triggers, but of course action is something that they all have. Action, so you can compress PDF preview, you can convert documents. Okay, sorry, preview means it's still in preview mode, like sorry, it is, yeah. So compress a PDF file, only files with .pdf extension are supported, so it does not really support everything, and it's in preview, which means it's like in beta, or it's still in like tests, or still in, yeah. So you can convert document to PDF. You can see like the list of, you can have like a detail of what's it called, the supported document that you can convert basically. So you can convert dynamic HTML to PDF. So these are like the list of things you can do with it. So let's say Africa is talking SMS. You want to send SMS using this connector. So what the connector offers you is like list of these actions. So just fetch inbox. You want to fetch your messages and you want to send your message. So you also have like the voice. So I think this would just post a call through like after making the configuration, of course. Yeah, correcting the connection. Yep, default action. So make an outbound call. So this is the only action supported by this connector. Yeah, and you can have like a full-fledged of like the kind of parameters it takes for it to like run the action. It takes the username, the from, so which has to do with your Africa is talking phone number, the person you're calling, the action type, an action for our service to perform this in this call. So of course they have like definition of action type. So it's probably like a drop down where you have to select the type of thing you want to do, the type of action you want to do. So the text, so it should be something you want to read out to the recipient on the call, and the URL basically. So maybe it's something you have like an attachment there or something like that. So I think I'm just moving, yeah, a little bit. So the Amazon S3 is something I think almost a lot of people have actually used. So Amazon S3 is, we call it S3 buckets basically. So it's a simple storage service on the AWS platform. So it enables you to save files, do a lot of things. So now these are the supported action for that. So you can get S3 object contents. So you can get S3 objects metadata, like information about, let's say, like this particular file or folder, like you want to get a folder name or something. So buckets, you want to list S3 buckets, you want to list S3 objects. You want to see the specific region where you have your buckets created, basically. Yeah. So you can explore this. Of course, maybe we're going to be shedding more light on this as well. So we have like list, like I said, you have like 600 plus connectors. You can connect dynamics, you can connect anything you can see here, you can connect. Now, another thing is you can even connect other services that is not listed here. So, but we'll be coming to that. I'll be coming to this. Like, I'll just be doing like I'll be doing after going through this, I'll be coming to the UI of Power Automate. So then you want to integrate with Microsoft ecosystem. So say you want to link your Power Automate process with to automate something on the Azure platform, on the Microsoft 365, the Dynamics 365. So you can easily integrate things on the Microsoft ecosystem. So you can. It also supports the on-premise and in the cloud. So what that means, it enables you to use data that is on-premise. So, for example, let's say you have your on-premise SQL server. So you can easily connect the on-premise SQL server. So it gives you the functionality of like having that gateway that helps you, like get your content or do the operations between your office, your what's it called, your platform environment, your Power Automate environments, or your Power Automate flow. So you can easily communicate with the on-premise data. So using the what's it called, the on-premise feature, the gateway basically. So this is like a scenario. A purchase order approval. Approvals are a great process to build in Power Automate. They are often defined yet manual. Check out the following scenario, for example. So if you look at the right hand side, so we have a manual trigger. Like, so what's the trigger in this scenario? The trigger has to do with Power Apps. Like on click of the Power Apps button, this flow executes. There's a way you connect flow to Power Apps. Of course, some of us are aware of that, but we're going to be trained more like on that as well. So you on click of the Power Apps button, what happens? It gets the manager of the user. So now the user input. If you look at the second, if we look at the second, what's it called, card. So this is a trigger. The trigger is manually triggered. It is manually triggered. So once you click on the button, so now when you are clicking on the button, you are also supplying this information. So the user that you want to get is manager. So you send in the details, probably the ID of this user. You're sending it from Power Apps. So once it gets here, it connects the Office 365 because this is an Office 365 connector. So it gets the manager of this user that you're sending his ID from Power Apps. Then what happens is it's, after running this block, this action, then it comes to this one, start and wait for an approval. So what it does is basically it creates an approval. So what this means is approval / rejects. Either the person approves or rejects. Then first to respond. So we have four types of approval. We have four approval type. So we have the first to respond. So we have, so which has to do with if anybody respond, then it will get past this flow. So there are some that all approval has to respond to the approval. So let's say you have more than one approvals. Say you have maybe like four people that has to approve that thing. So if any of them actually, all of them have to approve, then before you can actually continue the process. So now, like I said, of course, you are going to be showing us the card, in the demo basically, in the labs. So I'll be sharing the link to the lab as well after the call. Yeah, we're going to be dropping it on the what's it called, the bio, or the what's it called, the session description basically. So yeah, you want to start and wait for an approval. So once this action actually fires off, so it sends an email. yeah, so the approval type first you respond. So then the title of the email, because the person is definitely going to get an email, so it is assigned to the email of the manager, right? So the manager gets an email with the title and a description, and you have an attachment. So once the what's it called, the manager actually gets the approval. If the approval was not attended to, the flow will still be on this process for as long as the what's it called, the manager has not approved. So of course there is like a time limit at which the approval expires. I think that's around 30 days. So after 30 days the flow will just like fail, and because probably the approval outcome is dependent on the next action. So you don't really have an approval for that. So yeah, they said the flow can be built to evaluate the request and then route the request based on criteria such as submitting user and request amount. So the first action could be to send the request to the user's manager. The manager could be automatically received from Azure AD. So you can easily get who the manager of a particular user is by providing the user ID. So that's one of the functionality, that's what this card is meant for. And based on the what's it called, retrieved information, you can avoid prompting. You can what's it called, yeah, from the AD. So you can do specific tasks for that. So these are another type of flow. So a purchase order approval. So if you look at this, so there is after the manager receives the approval and approves, the flow can then provide conditional logic based on the outcome of Google. So typically, it might be something like this. If the purchase order request is greater than $10,000, send it to the VP. If not, then automatically approve the purchase order. So this is what it looks like on the right hand side. So ask manager for approval. So if the outcome of the approval is equal to approve, then you want to execute what? So we now have two blocks. We have the if yes and if no, right? So you have this condition. If the condition is greater than 10,000, then ask VP to approve. So this is it. You have the first level of approval. So let's say the first level of approval is like the product manager or someone, or like the manager, the immediate manager. So if the manager approves, now you now want to do, if the manager approves, you want to do like an extra check. Okay, the manager has approved, but is the value of the money that is being requested for greater than 10,000? If it is greater than 10,000, you want to create another approval flow and send to the VP for another approval. So if the value is not greater than 10,000, which is if it is equals or less than 10,000, then you want to email approve less than 10,000. Like you want to send an email to the person that approved that, okay, your approval has been granted, or your request has been granted, basically, and terminates the flow, right? So else, if the VP then approve, then you can still like do some nested checks. You can still do some nested, logic around it. So that's for the yes. That is if the manager approved. So if the manager did not approve, then you just want to kind of send an email that your request was not approved. So that is just like a very good and a very good scenario of what Power Automate helps you with. Yeah, you have the three types of flow that you can create. I think I've mentioned this as well. We have the cloud flow, we have the business process flow, and we have the desktop flow. Yeah, adding artificial intelligence to your flow without writing code. So you don't necessarily have to write the code. You can just like add the function of AI using the AI builder to kind of do some things. So you have the first one, from processor, basically. So it extracts information from your document, from a document. So let's say from an image. So this feature of AI builder enables you to kind of like extract the information. Then you have another one, so object detectors. So this one, you have like a model that you've trained to see different images of like something. So once it sees another image of that thing, it can easily identify it can easily identify what that object is actually. So prediction. Yeah, so this just like do prediction based on like previous data history. So it predicts whether something would be or would not be. So based on like the information you gave it, like you feed it information before you can actually ask it to predict. So more details, of course, you're going to be talking about that text classification. So this model categorize text by its meaning, making it easier to analyze. So let's say you want to categorize text by like by its meaning, basically. Yeah, customer case study. So I think Trojan is the name of the company. So they converting the strategy into action. So each of the five enablers is a catalyst to one or more strategic initiative along with the capabilities and will be executed training. So So let's you have the what's it called, the self-service, innovation, data, then digitize internally, then digital marketing. So of course, I don't really think this really plays major role in what we're trying. So I'm just gonna be skipping this. Yeah, Power Automate in action. Create a flow with Power Automate. So we are going to be doing that. So let's create a flow with Power Automate. Yeah, I would just like to select because I'm having issues coming up with I'm having issues coming up with an idea of what I can do, like coming up with a scenario. So let's say when an item in a SharePoint list is modified, send an email. No, we don't want to do this. Start an approval process from send an email or Microsoft form submission. No, we don't want to go through the stress of having to create a Microsoft form, create a planner tax when Microsoft form is submitted. No, let's just do like a SharePoint one. So let me just say SharePoint. So you can easily use this field to find different, things that are, affiliated, different templates that are linked to SharePoint, basically. SharePoint. So yeah, you have create a plan task when Microsoft form is submitted, start an approval process, and send an email and forms. Okay. Okay, let me just do this. Let me just do this. So I'm using the templates that sends an email when something is modified on the SharePoint. So I'm probably going to be having to like work on SharePoint as well. I'm going to be modifying data on SharePoint manually. So let me say I have this communication site. Yeah, let me just go to the site content. So if you look at this, I'm establishing connection to the SharePoint with my what's it called, credentials. Also, I'm establishing connection to my Outlook. I'm also establishing connection to like the Office 365 connector as well. So if I click on continue, so you want to specify the address. So that's what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to see if I have like a list that I can actually use for that purpose. But no, I don't think I do. So I will just come back here and use this SWG site. Yeah, basically. I think I have a couple of lists here. So I have a test list, thank God. So this test list, we can see the kind of the columns it has. We have the title, name, then add column. So we can easily select, okay, let's use the SWG site. What's the list name? Test. Yep. So when we create this, we have like the process, we have the trigger first, we have the actions afterwards. So you can edit the flow by words, clicking on the edit button. We can see the list of actions and the preceding it, basically. So of course the flow has been created for us. So but we want to do like, so when an item is modified here on this test list, then what do you want to do? We want to get my profile. So this goes into the Office 365 backend, fetch my email, then sends me an email. So now it uses this Outlook connection. It sends an email to who? To the email. So my email, after getting my profile, then you have like what we called dynamic content from it. So get my profile. This is the output after it goes to the Office 365 backend. So this is like the sample output of what you are expected to get. So for every, I don't want to like talk much about APIs or something like that. So, but you have like, so this connector. Okay, let me take it from here. When an item is modified, so you are modifying an item on this list, right? So the output of this trigger is basically data on this the data on this list, basically. For that, okay, let's say I modify this title one, right? So this is one record, so one record with multiple columns, right? So when I modify this, so what this Power Automate would get is it will get the record of what I'm modifying, not just the title, not just the name, but everything that has to do with it, when it was created, who created it, to have all those information. So that's why after this card, so once you click on any of this card, you can easily see that you have like the title, the name, created by. So there are some. So now we are having much more information that we saw here. So we saw like title, name, then just title and name on the what's it called, SharePoint column. But SharePoint has like some unmanaged columns. Uh, what I mean by that is there are some columns that you did not create it, but it is default. It is created by default by SharePoint. So once you have like a list, you can have like you have all these columns. So like these are the columns basically. So it comes with it comes with a record with all these data. So you can easily use all this data on the Power Automate basically. So this is like the sample output of what you can use. So you can see the created by claims, created by display name, that is the person who created the record or the person who modified the record. So yeah, the identifier, the ID of that particular record on the list. So you can, maybe you want to send an email to the person who created the, what's it called, who created the record. So for me, I think I'm just going to do away with this guy. Why? Because I'm trying to send an email to myself. Okay, yeah, I think I'll just leave it like that. I'm trying to send an email to myself when somebody modify an existing item. So let's save this flow and let's test. So this is what happens. I'm going to modify this record. Edit. Yeah. So title one modified. Then I'm gonna save this. So let's see what happens. Yeah, I'm going back to the flow menu. So this is the flow. It is called when an item in a SharePoint is modified, send an email. So let me just refresh the, what's it called, the runs. So for a flow, we have runs, right? So we have runs. Yeah. So I'm just trying to refresh the whole page to see if the flow had fired up, basically. So as expected, it's an automated flow that was supposed to have fired off with some weird reason. I don't know why it's not. So we can see, yeah. So it's basically worked. So we can, sorry, let me just go one step backward. So you can see the list of the runs. Like for every flow, you have, like, multiple runs for a flow. So if you look at this now, it's fired off 13 seconds ago. So immediately I modify that, the trigger picked automatically. So when an item is modified from this SharePoint site, this list name, then it gets all the output of, like I said, the records basically. So you can, I think this is still coming up. It's still trying to kind of load. So then you can get my profile. So you can also see the output of my profile. So it gets my email. Then you are sending me the email. I'm sending the email to myself. Automatically, if I open my Outlook, I've gotten the email. So that is like, you don't really have to come and send an email after you update this field. You don't necessarily have to go and, okay, this is the owner of the list, so I have to send him an email. No, just do that. Look at it. Item one was modified at this time by Fatih. Yeah, the name of the what's it called, the person who modified the item basically. So you can have all this process like seamless, that you don't really have to, like, go through the, you don't have to go through the headache of having to do multiple things yourself. So you can just automate the process. So summary and knowledge check, I think that's like a demo to what you're trying to say since morning. So how to build an automated solution. Yeah. uh Uh, okay, I think it's time is up, but I think I started pretty, like, maybe 10 minutes late. So I'll just try to round up because I think I still have about 10 more slides to go. So you can create a flow from templates the way I just did now. You can create a recurring flow on a schedule. So I'll be showing us through that, like, after going through the slides. So create a flow triggered by a button. You can automate an approval request and discover the approval center. Yep. So you have this list of templates. I've shared this screen before, and you can see, like, we have different templates for different things. So you can search using keywords for relevant templates. Maybe you want to have anything to do with approval, just type approval in the search field, and automatically it comes up with any templates that has to do with, like, approval. Yeah. Also, maybe you want to do something with OneDrive, SharePoint. You can easily just type those, and you can see that. This concept in Microsoft Automate. Yeah, keep the concept in mind when building flows. You have a trigger, like I said, and you have one or more actions. So immediately you have a trigger. You can't just have a trigger. You must have something that happens after the trigger. So which means you must have one action after a trigger or more, right? So think of trigger as starting the action of a flow, something that fires the flow, something that, like, initiates the flow. Actions are what really happens afterwards, like after the flow is being triggered. Yep, that's just like a very detailed summary of, what action and trigger is. Some example of types of action you can have in a flow includes loops. So let's say you have a SharePoint list. You have, like, when we're talking about lists, we are loops. We are talking about more than more than one, what's it called, more than one operation. So let's say for this SharePoint list, you want to get the data. You want to get, like, all the rows. So this is the first row, this is the second row, this is the third row. So after getting all the rows, you now want to modify, you want to update each of the, what's it called, the rows, by putting maybe test one confirmed, test two, title two confirmed, title three confirmed. So I'm going to be doing that. I'm going to be doing that next. Switch, you want to have like switch is like conditionals as well, such like an if statement. Okay, if, okay, like the one we explained the other time. So if the outcome of the approval is accept, then you have like do this. If the outcome of the approval is rejected, do this. So switch is you have like a multiple block for multiple case scenario. So based on your outcome, let's say read into the SharePoint list. If switch, now you now have switch is just like you specifying conditionals. So conditionals, after specifying the conditional, when the condition is met, whatever is in the block will run. If the condition is, like, let's say you have, okay, you have age field. So if the age is greater than 10, run this specific field, send all the users that are, within the age of 10 years, send them an email. If the age is, like greater than 10, less than 20, you want to send all the users that has that has that specific age range, you want to send them an email, okay, with this content. So switch, you can have like multiple conditions or multiple block for different conditions. Do until. So this has to do like, it's more like a do while loop. So do until the condition is met. Apply to each. So for each of these items, so apply to each and loops. They are like they are intertwined. So what I mean by that is once you get list of items from the SharePoint, so you can be like, okay, apply to each for each of these items. So do this. So inside the apply to each, then you can now like do the operation I mentioned. Maybe you want to append something to the title, want to like update the title totally, basically. So annotations, you have flow expressions, of course. Yeah, when defining triggers, there are a few different types. When something changes, so now trigger on run the flow, trigger or run the flow, basically. So with Spot Automate, you don't think of running a flow the same way as you do with Power Apps. So you don't necessarily have to open the flow the way you open the Power Apps and click on the button or type to complete the form. You don't necessarily have to do that. So yeah, when defining triggers, there are a few different types. The triggers, like I said, we have the what's it called? When something changes, like when an item is modified in a SharePoint list, you want to trigger something. So these triggers can that run when data is changed. It could be a new item created in SharePoint. So that is a change. So something changed on the list. So that is a trigger. A lead is updated in Dynamics. Say you are using a Dynamics connector. So you'd be like, okay, when a lead is updated, to a what's it called? I've forgotten the name, maybe a contact or something. So when a lead is updated in Dynamics, you want to fire an event. So there are events that are dependent on when something changes. There are events that are dependent on the schedule, something that happens every 8 a.m., something that happens every 12 p.m., something that happens maybe once in 2 days in a week, something that happens every Wednesday. So these are like schedule based, triggers. So and we have like on a button press trigger, maybe you click on a button in Power Apps, you want to run a flow. That actually happens as well. You want to click on a button from your Flow mobile, and that you want the actual flow to fire based on that. That's also achievable. So that's like the manual trigger flow. So this is the scheduled flow I was talking about. I'm going to be showing us I'm going to be showing us like those three. I've showed one which has to do with the automated flow. I'm going to be showing this and the other one as well. So look at this scheduled flow that I can run like once a day, once in an hour or minutes. Basically, you can specify. So button you can specify, whichever manual action would fire the flow. I'm going to show that as well. So you have like create a flow using the button through the Power Automate mobile app. Activity feeds browsing. I'm going to like show this like overview. So understanding business process flow. So this has to do with you telling your users, okay, this is like what the flow looks like. So this is just more like a what's it called? A mock-up. I won't call it mock-up. It's just like you telling stories, like user stories. No, not user stories, basically. It's just you defining your work process, like your workflow, basically. So this is more like a manual thing. Okay, you're trying to explain, okay, this is after on click of this button. So maybe you want to create an application now, a Power Apps. So you can have like a business process flow that okay, we want a landing page. So once the person click on continue, you want to see a form. Once the person clicks on continue, then you want to see this, you have that full-fledged flexibility of, like analyzing what you want to do and what you want to achieve. So discussing the entire business process flow is what you use this actual the actual business process flow for. So how to build an automated solution. I'm going to be sharing a link to the lab basically, and I think that's the end of the slides. So just like a very quick one, we have, like I said, we have three different types of triggers. So let me try to create, you know, I've created automated cloud flow. So for the instance one, so flow from flow button from mobile. You want to when you click on the flow button, you want the this thing to trigger. So once you click on the button in Power Apps, you want the flow to fire. When you click on when the port what's it called? When Portal Virtual Agent calls a flow, then you want to trigger the flow. So you have like for a selected message, you want to trigger a flow. So you have all these flexibility. Maybe you want to select it once you select a file from a folder on OneDrive, you want to trigger a flow. So these are like different manual options. So you have like a lot of them basically. So you can always explore them. So that's for the instant flow. That is like manually triggered flow, basically. So another one for the scheduled flow, like I was talking about. So let's say you want to have a flow that's does just like job importation. You want to import data from somewhere to somewhere. So you can start. So when is the flow starting? Maybe you want it to start. You don't want it to consider any date before 25th. You can specify at what time do you want it to execute. Maybe you have the flexibility of specifying the time. You can also type it in manually every 10 a.m. in the morning, or every 10:50, every 1:45. You can specify. When should you repeat it? Once every when? Is it every month? Okay, you want it flow, so automatically this flow would be repeated every month on 25th, once every month. You want it to be repeated like once every week. Okay, you still have the flexibility of saying, do you want it like once every week, like every Monday? Yeah, fine. Every Monday, Tuesday, every Monday, Wednesday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or every day of the week. So you can also, you can pick that. So you have that, like it is very like customizable. You want it to run once every day at 1:45. So this is when it starts. So of course, if you want it to start today, then you can select today's date. So you can also run it every hour, right? To be realistic, you don't think you might have like business process that warrants that. So you also have flows that you want to execute every minute and every second, basically. Yeah. So I think those are like the three types of trigger. I think I've talked about the automated cloud flow. So this also has like a lot of triggers that has to do with SharePoint, Microsoft Forms, whichever one. So I wanted to mention something about, like, let me just create like a test2 flow. So this has to do with when an item is created, or let me say, yeah, let me just use this as well. So when an item is created, I just want to like create it from scratch so we can see what it looks like. So rather than using the template, so you can select the SharePoint site where you want it to trigger from. So no, I don't want the condition site. I want the SWG sites. Then I want you to select the list name test. So another step is, okay, when an item is created, what should happen? Let's get all the items. So you can do get items, or better still, let's say you don't know the name of the connection you don't know the name of action you're looking for. You can just type SharePoint. So when you type SharePoint, you see the list of actions that exist for the SharePoint. So get items. So this is what we are trying to use. So if you are trying to do something else, you can see like list of actions supported on SharePoint actions. So I'm trying to get items from here, from the same SWG site, from the test, basically. So you can also limit entries. Maybe you want to just select maybe like first 5 items of the list, so you can do that. And if you leave it blank, it just takes all the entries. And yeah, you can also do like filtering. Okay, you can do where the name equals to where ID. You can do like filter query. So filter query, if you look at the placeholder here, so it says old data filter query to restrict the entries returned. So for example, you want to return where like a column is equals to string, or where a column, the values of the columns are number. So of course, we might have to talk about this later on. So get items. So I'm just kind of putting a scenario. So let's get in the items. So you want to update each of the items. So I'm trying to update update item. Yeah, still from the SharePoint. Of course, because I know the name of the action, so I'm just like typing it straight up. So, but if you don't know the name of the action, you can just have to type SharePoint and you see the list of supported actions. So then the ID. So the ID, I want it to come from get items. So automatically something happens. We get and apply to each, which means get items. We have array of items. So which means we have like more than one record that is gotten. So now for each of the item, you want to update the item. So what do you want to update? You want to update the title to, so title modified. So, and the name, let's say name modified. because this is not realistic. I'm just like coming up with something. So what happens afterwards? So this automatically, okay, let me just run the flow. Let me save it. So after saving it, I'm going to go to the SharePoint. I'm going to create, okay, it says there is something. What was that? Okay, okay, I think it's saved. So flow checker is just a warning. Okay, so now this is just warning you that what if you have like 10,000 records? So do you want to like go through each of the records and just, so you might want to limit, maybe like the first 5 items. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to limit it to the first, limit and, sorry, so sorry, top count. I'm going to be doing a top count two, for example. So like when I say this, it's going to like take like the first two records so we can see the what's it called, the warning is gone. So just to be realistic, you don't really want to like do that for all the items. So yeah, I'm going to create a new item, title for this, then the value, but just something. So once I create that, it automatically fires off this flow. And when we come to this flow, you can always see the run. So based on the plan you have, it might take some, like few seconds for the flow to actually fire off. So once you click on this, you're just refreshing the flow runs. So it shows you if it has, of course, you might just have to do like a hard refresh to refresh the whole page to see most times. So let me click on all runs. So you have different type of runs. Okay, it has not fired yet. So you can see the run history. Okay, it's not yet, basically. I'm sure it's still gonna fire off. Okay, so once your run is not coming up like this, so you can try to check, is it successful? So you see all the list of successful run here. So there are some runs that are skipped basically. So for example, now what I triggered, the run actually skipped. I don't know why though, but look at it. So it skipped. So I think it's something that has to do with yep. So I'll just try to, yeah. So I think it's running. Yeah, now it's fired off. So there might be some discrepancies that would cause it to actually skip and maybe to retry after a couple of seconds, basically. So if you look at it now, so when an item is created, I created this new item. So if you click on this, of course, you might not be able to read the content, but for me, I don't have JSON's. Okay, I'll just take it to another browser. No, okay, I just have like, of course I can read it basically for myself, but maybe I don't want to confuse everybody. Let me just close this. So I created an item. So what the output here is, looks like, is just you have like output of what you created, then get items. This basically lists all the items on the SharePoint. So you can see we have all data type. What am I trying to say? So if you do Control F ID, so you can see ID. This is the second item, ID2. So for the third item, this is like the first item. So ID1. So like I said, I limited the what's it called, the top count to two. So it's going to like return just two records. So apply to each basically, which means for the two items that was returned, so update each of those items. So it's the list name. That's the list name. So what it's going to do is it's going to update the name to name modified and title modified. So that's for the first record that was returned, and this for the second records that was returned. So if you come back to the SharePoint and see, so we can see that the first and second, record was modified to what, title modified. So I think, yeah, with this, I would just have to conclude the discussion for today, basically. And yeah, thank you, everyone. Okay, okay. I think I got a couple of questions. I'm just seeing the questions now. Sorry about that. Yeah. Okay. We have a lot of demos. Sorry, we have a lot of requests for demos. Of course, we can have people. I think I want to request people to actually drop scenarios for me, and I'm going to create flows as regards that. So you can please bring in your, what's it called, your request as regards what you want us to create specifically. Maybe not a very large flow, but of course it's something I don't really want to go through the stress of having to come up with the ideas basically. But you can actually send me your request, and I'm gonna be creating the, what's it called, the flow as regards that. So the first question, Please help on how to go about this. We have a list web part on SharePoint. I'll take it as a SharePoint list, and would like the list to display only users that have their birthday today on the SharePoint. Data source should be point to the company directory. So now, what I'm going to say is, for this question, a very good way to go about it is you have the user records on the SharePoint list. So what you can just do is, let's say you have like a Power Apps, table, or you have a Power Apps gallery that displays the user that has their birthday for that date. So what you're going to do is just do like a filter through the records, check the one that has the date, like the birth date basically equals to the current date, like the date. So it's going to go like something like via you're filtering through list of records. So let's say the column name is birthday. So where birthday is equals to date dot now, like today's date, basically. So it's going to list it out. Yeah. I think that's like a very short response to the question. And yeah, I'm trying to see if we have more questions, but yeah, I can't really get any for now. Yeah, thanks everyone. Yeah, okay. I think with this we'll be concluding the session for today, and we're gonna be meeting next week, hopefully. Yeah. Thank you everyone, and have a great week ahead.